I would now like to call the Tuesday, February 8th, 2022 meeting of the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation to order. As our first item here, Eric, will you please call the roll to confirm we have a quorum?
Yes, Chairman Liebel.
Present.
Commissioner Powell.
Present.
She's really here.
Commissioner Bryant.
Here.
Laura Penza. Commissioner Penza.
Present.
Councilman Bullock.
Present.
Commissioner Renan.
Present.
Commissioner Mosca. He is absent. And Commissioner French.
Present.
And Commissioner Edwards.
Present.
Great.
All right, we have a quorum, so we can now proceed. With that, our first order of business will be approval of the meeting minutes from January 11th, 2022. Let the record show 2022, not 21. Commissioners, you will have received this in your pre-meeting packet and had the chance to review them. Are there any revisions or corrections to the minutes?
Yes, Commissioner French, I noticed on I think it was the third item, 600 North Howard Street last month, that I wasn't shown as having voted, and I do believe I voted affirmatively on that item.
All right, thank you for correcting that. Commissioners, any other comments or revisions? Hearing none, may I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
This is Commissioner Renan. I'll approve the meeting minutes.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Commissioner
Bryant, I second.
Mr. Bryant or Dr. Bryant seconds. All right. So all those in favor of moving the meeting minutes from last month as amended, please signify by saying aye when Eric calls your name.
Commissioner Powell.
Aye.
Commissioner Bryant.
Aye.
Commissioner Penza.
Aye.
Councilman Bullock.
Aye.
Commissioner Renan.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All right. The meeting minutes from last month are approved. Now moving to our regular agenda, our first item is 104 to 112 East Madison Street in the Mount Vernon Historic District. The proposal is for final review to construct a 3-story addition. The applicant is Mark Bonta with BCA Architects, and staff reviewer is going to be Anthony Stewart presenting. Anthony, please take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Next slide, please.
You can speak up a little bit, Anthony. It's a little difficult to hear you.
Is that better?
Much better.
All right, thank you. The Mount Vernon Historic District encompasses roughly 40 blocks surrounding the Mount Vernon Place. The extremity buildings within this district include a diversity of styles and building types, including mansions, apartments, offices, and religious structures. The period of significance for Mount Vernon Historical District extends from 1810 to 1945. Next slide, please. The site of the proposed addition is located on the north side of the 100 block of East Madison Street between Hargrove Street to the west and North Calvert Street to the east. The property in question has historically built as a five row houses within a row of 6, all 6 extent retained from the original form. Next slide. This is a view of the south front elevation. Next slide. Views of 104 through 112 East Madison seen from Calvert Street. Next slide, please. And then the views of the rear from 112 East Madison and the view from 110 of 108 East Madison. And next slide, please. The view of the rear from 104 East Madison and rear 104. And then the next slide, these are just all the elevations of the current property and then detail of the rear side door at 106 and the view of the proportional siding floors from 108. The next slide. The buildings were constructed in the 1840s and appear in the East San Jacinto Code bird eye view for the South City of Baltimore in 1968. And the next slide. The buildings, next slide. All right, I apologize. Moved too fast there. Yeah, and this is a view from 104 East Madison Street. And these buildings are a 3-bay, 3-story brick row house with brownstone water table and detailing. The first floor doors and windows are arched, and the buildings are capped with deep cornices supported by brackets at either end of each row house pair. The windows and door opens features painted decorative stone surrounds, and except for the first floor of the 3 easternmost row houses, which is missing this detail. At the rear of the buildings, each property has a rear L that extends toward the rear of the lot. The materials used were more utilitarian in nature, such as low or fried bricks, and east elevation of 112 Madison substance covered as a more ornate view. Next slide. Each of the row houses mirror each other through the westernmost row house. It is not part of the proposal as shown here in the 1890 Sanborn map. The buildings are 3-bay, 3 stories, as I've mentioned. In background, next slide, please. One more. So from December 2021 here, the commission reviewed the concept and made motion to approve proposal and asked that in return forward to commission for final review and maintain more of the historic fabric of the real building. Next slide. So the proposal, this is the demolition plan for the property. Next slide, we'll go to the first floor. This is the first and the first floor, second floor. Keep going, please. This is reviewing. All right, the next slide, please. Elevation with the description of the different elements that are happening on the building. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Rendered elevation. Oh, one more. Keep going, please. So, next slide. So staff applied 1.5 alternative materials. The guideline states that where a historic picture is entirely missing or where replacement has been approved by the commission, a visual and physical compatible alternative material may be used. Replicant elements in the size, form, shape, and texture appearance from this feature. The applicant proposes to replicate the historic appearance of the building through use of yawn mortar, scored stucco on the first floor of Madison Street elevation. The use of yawn mortar to recreate a historic look that meets the guidelines. However, the details included, color, and scoring should be reviewed and filled with to match accurate. Next slide, please. Staff applied 2.1 guiding principles for new design, identifying the character defining features of the surrounding historic buildings, the streetscape, the design of the new building to visually relate to the historic environment, respect established design precedents in the immediate area, and contemporary architectural design reflects its current time, place, use, and culture is accepted. Provided the design is compatible with the character of the historic district. The design for the proposed addition on North Calvert Street will include a curtain wall separating the historic building from the new massing, composed of limestone masonry units. The proposal includes a canopy at the entrance that extends over the entry ramp, as well as the signage at the first floor and the 2 punched openings at both the second and third floor. Staff finds that the proposed design generally meets the guidelines as a contemporary architecture can be approved. However, the design should be modified specifically specifically the masonry massing element to better visually relate to historic residential architecture that surrounds the site. Next slide, please. Staff applied 2.4.5 roofs to design roof elements to complete the ornate pitch, complexity, and scale of the roofs on surrounding buildings and locate the screen rooftop features to minimize their visibility from the street. Design cornices to be capable with height, scale, and articulation of existing cornice lines and surrounding buildings. The proposed roof design of the new addition includes a flat portion above the curtain wall and a sloped roof at the stair tower. The sloped portion of the roofs is different than the surrounding flat roofs found in the surrounding buildings. More information is necessary to better understand how the various roof lines meet, including perspective views that show how the building will be seen in reality. Next slide, please. Next slide. Seems to be duplicated there. 2.51 doors and windows. Design doors and windows to be compatible with replacement scale type and orientation of doors and windows and their openings in the surrounding buildings. Design the doors and windows to be compatible with the architectural character of the new facade and the surrounding buildings. The proposed facade facing North Calvert Street includes a double leaf storefront door and a curtain wall, as well as four double hung windows. Staff believes that the elevation of the mullion pattern in the curtain wall would help it to be more compatible with the historic building. Additionally, the lintels and the new double hung windows should be more aligned with the grid pattern to be more compatible with the historic building. One more. That's it. Okay, thank you. On the rear elevation, the applicant proposes to use a buff color brick. The applicant plans on salvaging brick removed during the demolition to be salvaged and reused for Calvert Street elevation, where the sloping edges will be squared off. Next slide. The addition will be made up of limestone masonry units, ironstone or nutmeg in color. Staff recommends the nutmeg as it fits more with the historical context and addition. The addition will also include a curtain wall, vision glass, and spandrel glass with the black aluminum metal framing. And metal wall coping will be applied to the roof in a cityscape color, and the entry of North Calvert metal canopy will be installed in a patina green. The vestibule will have a custom stained doors with non-insulated clear glass and concrete retaining walls. And then just go to the analysis, please. So staff finds the proposal generally meets the guidelines, but the design of the masonry should be modified to be more compatible with the surrounding architecture, specifically the grid pattern on the curtain wall and the continuing lines of the punched opening windows. I have no neighborhood comments at the next slide. No neighborhood comments at this time. And next slide. Staff recommends final approval for the proposal with conditions that the final details return to staff. Require a site visit for the color sample of the yawn mortar. Modify the design to align the grid lines and lines punched windows. Use nutmeg color for the proposed limestone materials. Provide more accurate renderings showing the use of patina green canopy and provide more accurate renderings to design the various roof lines. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Anthony. Commissioners, do you have any questions on this presentation?
I have a question about the yawn mortar, but the question might be best answered by the applicant.
But it seems like a lovely segue to invite the applicant up to speak with the commission here.
This is Commissioner Powell. I had a question. I thought that it's similar to Commissioner Renan's. Have we seen something different for locations for the yawn mortar system before? Like, is it always been just below the first floor?
I don't think it is below the first floor. I mean, the drawings point to the first floor, the whole first floor. But that was my question: is like, what exactly is the location? What is the intent? And then and some ideas about the details. Like, are they removing the brick to put the the faux brownstone on? Are they just piling it on top? You know, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Those seem like awesome questions for the applicant at this point. Commissioners, any other questions before we speak to the applicant? And if not, Stacy, if you can bring the applicant forward.
Yes, I'm going to unmute Donald Can, who is speaking on behalf of the applicant. So Donald, you are unmuted.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. First of all, let me thank the commissioners and the staff for working with us and providing all this input as this project has evolved. I think we've reached a point of a strong preservation effort with your input, and then share with you too the number of things we've talked about previously in terms of community outreach and the interpretation of this building for both the students that'll be there and the community in general. So I think we've achieved a lot of particular potentials about this project that are fairly unique. I think we mentioned before, and I'll talk about the stucco in a second. We mentioned before that if you remember back when we started, that we have modified the plan substantially to include the two rear portions along Calvert Street, which required reworking of the entire plan to accomplish that and relocating the point of entry. A major change at a critical time in the project. We're proposing now, as you see in the drawings, or you've seen, that the new doors along the front street will be consistent with the historic character of the building. And they'll be new in most cases to replicate the original. We agreed at some point along the way to keep the existing vestibules that are there, that are largely intact with some minor changes. They'll be largely intact. And I think we've shared with you various times the keeping selected interior features. And I know we've talked about the loss of those stairs a couple times, but with fireplaces and a great deal of the interior wood detailing and plaster detailing, a lot of that'll be retained. So I think a pretty major effort has been made beyond just obviously discussing the exterior of the building. And then I'd say in the public conversation, just again very briefly, the Loyola School has made major commitments and intends to pursue all of these as outreaches to the community beyond the preservation effort. Supporting the adjacent neighborhood playground, providing space for local lectures and music programs in the building, allowing, or at least strong consideration for Mount Vernon applicants. And a lot of these issues, as you know, have been raised by the community in our various meetings, and wanted to just continue to address those because they're really considered very important to us too. And then pursue a music program as well. The other thing that's of interest, and we heard it at the last public hearing, was a discussion of potential residents in these buildings that go back to the original construction. And so there's an effort that's already underway to actually explore the history of these buildings and the folks that live there. We learned just recently, and we could certainly expand on this if it's an interest today, but we certainly will be expanding on it in the months ahead. In the 1880 census documents, we were able to learn who actually lived at the 110 Madison Street, and it included the family that lived there, but it also included 3 folks on the census indicated as Black servants, aged 25 and 30 and 35. So, and the names of those folks. So we're continuing to research that. I think what's interesting is that while the rears of these buildings have been compromised architecturally so many times, that the history and story of these buildings will be brought forward both for the students in the neighborhood. I think it's been said a number of times how important that is to the legacy of these buildings, certainly, but also to the story behind them and how they evolved. And we also noted that there was a African-American Catholic group that worshipped in the church in the late 1850s and looks like up until the Civil War. So again, all this history will be evolved and shared with everybody, and I think it's sort of an interesting component of this whole story. With respect to the stucco, the intent has been to retain the bricks that are there and actually apply mortar on top of those. I think we've challenged that back and forth a couple of times. The decision was made in response to certain inquiries made by the community. We're certainly open to further explore that, to review that with the staff as appropriate, and make a final determination. We certainly don't want to put something up there that is not going to meet visual requirements, but also long-term stability on the building. So glad to discuss that, and perhaps Mark Banda might want to take it further, but we understand the inquiry, and we certainly want to continue to do research on that to make sure we can accomplish what we think. And if we can't, then we certainly, don't want to do it. So we leave that sort of open to further conversation.
Thank you, Donald. Can you remind me why that came up to begin with? Was there some evidence that the brick was not original at that first floor, and that it wasn't brownstone?
I don't think we have evidence of that. It was a question that was raised by Charlie Duff in the community at a fairly early stage after our initial conversations with you all. We were trying to respond to that in a constructive way, but there is no real evidence that we've seen, unless somebody wants to correct me that knows differently, that we've seen that. I mean, we know who the architects were, and our sense was that they've used that technique on other buildings in Mount Vernon, but we do not have specific evidence of it.
This is Commissioner Powell. And I would say that the brick on the first floor of the buildings has multicolors in it. Like there's some darker brick that would have been obviously closer to the fire in the kiln. And there's also there are also header courses that tie back that are exposed on the lower facade. And on the upper facade, the brick is homogeneous in color and it's in a simple running bond. So it does suggest to me that it could have been covered in stucco and that was the intent. And then when you drive down the street in Google Maps now, you can see that the trim around the first floor window moves from kind of changes in character, sometimes expressing a little bit of the brick that forms the window head. And then by the time you get to the corner, the trim is completely missing. So it is, to me, that is evidence that suggests that in fact there was a different articulation, like something like a stucco. And if that was the case, when you turn the corner and look at the elevation along Calvert Street, I would imagine that it would have wrapped, because it's the same scenario with more of a finished brick on the above the first floor, and this kind of more brick that was probably always designed to be covered on the first floor. But that's just from looking at the pictures online.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. Commissioners, do you have any other questions for former Chair Tan? Hearing none. Thank you very much, sir. Always great to hear your voice. And
thank you.
We will see who else is next. Stacy, who else is signed in to testify?
So no one else has indicated thus far, but please feel free to raise your hand or message in the chat. No one else has indicated that they want to testify, but there are a couple of call-in users. So I will unmute them. And I know that several other members of the team are available if we have specific questions for them. But let me unmute the callers. Okay, so first, if your phone number starts with 410332 and you just heard 2 beeps, are you here to speak for this item or another item or just listening?
I'm listening.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right. The next person I'm going to unmute, if your number starts with 410382 and you just heard 2 beeps, are you here for this item, another item, or just listening?
Just listening.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm just going to check. So there's no one else who has raised their hand, and there's no one else. Oh, actually, no, someone just indicated they want to speak. So I'm going to, I'm going to unmute Scott Bonamone, and I'm sorry if I did not pronounce her name correctly. I'm going to unmute Scott. You should be unmuted.
Thank you. This is Scott Bonamone. I'm the incoming chairman of the Mount Vernon Belvedere Association's ARC Committee. And I just want to agree with Commissioner Powell about the cladding on the Calvert side of 112 Madison. If you look at the above the water course, you'll see pressed bricks, the same as you see on all the other buildings on Madison Street, and a lesser quality brick between the water course and the water table. This, to me, indicates there was a different surface that was visible to the public, and that brick was not to be seen. So yes, the stucco work is needed on that facade as well. Steve Shen sent a letter to Eric Holcomb December 12th of last year, and which he said, we are pleased to see revision of the plan that preserves a highly visible rear structure of the North Calvert Street elevation on 112 East Madison. We're also pleased to see the proposal to restoring the brownstone cladding on the first floor and basement levels of the entire group of buildings. We suggest that any replacement brownstone should turn the corner on Calvert Street and run the entire length of the primary structure where there's evidence of a lesser quality brick exposed. We also suggest that the upper windows should be configured to be 2/2 and that any vinyl surrounds be replaced with Baltimore bullnose as seen on 112 Madison Street. The bullnose is also missing on the first floor, 106 Madison Street. We note that the outer vestibule doors on 108 Madison Street closest to the original, maybe original, except that the glass has been added for the upper panel. That should be restored to wood, and that should be the model for all the outer vestibule doors. I would also hope that since one of the reasons for finding the location on Madison Street as the expansion of Loyola School was the existence of the Children's Park across the street on Calvert Street. That park, and people who helped put it together are hoping to expand the tree wells to make it more visible and safer for the children, and also provide a drainage pits that would keep runoff water maintained. I would just suggest that there would be the architects or the Loyola people at St. Ignatius would help contribute to that project, which we are, as of last year, $7,000 short of reaching the future. So I know you have a streetscape budget on the west side of Calvert Street, but I want you to consider and this is just my request, to consider adding to that budget around the children's park. And thanks for allowing me to make comments.
All right. Stacy, is there anyone else or commissioners who have any questions of the testifier right now? All right, I seem to have frozen up here. Can folks hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
It just everything kind of froze up for a second there. Commissioners, any other questions? If not, Stacy, is anyone else signed in to testify?
Yes, we have one more person. Sorry. James Cassiotti. Again, I'm sorry. I'm terrible at pronouncing people's names and I don't mean any disrespect. So, James, you have been unmuted.
Thank you. It's a fine Irish name. You got it well good. I'm the pastor of the parish, and I just want to chip in to say that really pleased with today's suggestions. We've come a long way. That I think the building will be useful for our kids, for our mission, and the idea of the restoring the stucco, and it's going to be a beautiful thing when it's done. I'm very pleased with what we've done today. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any questions for Father Cassiotti? Hearing none of nothing else, thank you, sir, for continuing to support the community that you're in. Is that it for folks interested in testifying, Stacy?
Yes, I'm giving one more.
Going once.
Going once, going twice. I don't know if anyone else has raised their hand or indicated in the chat. And there's no new call-in users, but as I did say before, the rest of the team is certainly available. They've let us know they're available for any additional questions about the project.
All right. Commissioners, shall we deliberate?
This is Commissioner French. Just for my own edification, and maybe some of my architect friends on the commission can help with this. But Jan mortar, is it just mortar? Is it a cladding system? Is it stucco? I mean, it's been referred to different things. I just want to understand a little bit better where we're talking about and what is the material. Yeah.
This is Commissioner Penza. The only thing I really know about this, and I certainly am not an expert here, is that it's really used for a lot of repairing masonry, and it's breathable and easily colored, so you can match. If you're infilling or doing this kind of work, you can get just the right tone. But I really would love to hear of that from the architect specifying this.
Yeah. And, we have some experience with Jan, and actually Jan is a company and they make a variety of mortars. So I think one of the questions is, it's not just Jan mortar, but which model series are you planning to use there? And mortar has been used, or stucco has been used in the past as a method of replicating traditional stone coursing, where you'll see in traditional architecture, they'll smear it with a stucco and then score it to make it look like stone or brownstone. It seems like some of the evidence here might point to that's what they did here, so that they weren't truly brownstones, but they were brown colored. I do think there is one question I have is about how's it going to be attached? How will this be attached? Are you going to nail up wire lath and stucco to it? Are you going to try and do directly adhered? Or are you trying to create a drainage plane behind it? There's a couple questions technically about how this will be applied, because the way someone made the comment earlier, it's like formstone. But we've learned a lot since then. I would hope we would not put formstone back up, knowing what we know today.
And we're doing this because historically it's considered to be more accurate, or there is some issue of, damaged, brick beneath it that we're covering up some potential problem, or I hope someone could clarify that.
It sounds like there's no current flaws in the system, but Stacy, if we could unmute someone on the design team to kind of explain once again why they're proposing to use the mortar here, whether it's Mr. Can or someone else.
Yes, I'm going to unmute Mr. Banta and Mr. Can, and they can let us know who the right person is to answer that question. Okay.
Well, this is Mark Banta of Banta Campbell Architects. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. According to the book on Nancy and Nelson, the architects who designed these 6-row homes, they were stuccoed brownstone because they couldn't afford to use real brownstone on these structures. These were spec row homes, according to the book. The Jan mortar came about because at our first Mount Vernon committee meeting with them, they said, "Where's the stucco that's missing?" And they repeated that request, 2 or 3 times over the last 5 or 6 months. So we agreed in November to do this, and we talked with Caitlin Audette of the CHAP staff, who said we must use the Jan mortar, and the material we're looking at is the M70. That's a question, I guess, what person have asked. And yes, the colors are great. And we talked to a expert in stuccoing who's been doing some work in other homes. He suggested that we would route out the mortar joint of every brick joint on that first floor and apply the mesh to that and continuous for that. And then apply the stucco brownstone, and we would score it to look like, brownstone blocks. I think we showed something roughly 12 inches by 24 inches in the pattern. So that's where we are today. We have not explored any more techniques, drainage, things like that at this stage, but that's where we are. And we're just as concerned as you all are on the longevity of this material. So we still have more homework to do, but that's as much as we know right now.
But I think to sort of go to one of the early questions is this wasn't just a speculative, gee, they might have had stucco here, but you've got historic data that indicates it was indeed stuccoed on the lower level. And furthermore, you're able to point to the fact that they couldn't afford real brownstone, so they had gone with the stucco. So that's very helpful that it's not just a random guess, but rather you have data to support that. All right.
To clarify, Tom, sorry to interrupt, but staff did not say that there was a requirement to do the stucco. This was a request to do it. So they can, per our guidelines, they can it can remain brick. But the request, we're just reviewing the request from the applicant. So that was that. And then additionally, staff did not say they must use Jan mortar. It was that or a comparable product. We don't recommend specific products.
Thank you for clarifying. And sort of to further clarify, when we talk stucco, we're talking real authentic stucco and not, drive it or some sort of other sort of exterior insulation and finishing system. So that's the real deal when we do authorize it here.
Right.
Other questions for the architect commissioners? If not, we can go back to our deliberations. Does that clarify the question?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Commissioners, other questions or motions? What are we thinking here?
This is Commissioner Renan. I would suggest, given all this conversation about, whether it's stucco, Jan mortar, or whatnot, that the second bullet point about a site visit with color sample, I think we want an actual mock-up, because it's not so much about the color matching, it's about how it's attaching. I personally have only used Jan mortar as a patching material and not as sort of a full-scale, stucco covering. I noticed they did submit a stucco product in their materials selection. So, but really, I think we just want to know a little more about how it's being installed and, what it's going to look like, what the joints are going to look like, the faux joints, I guess I should say, and the color and that kind of thing. So maybe if we just change color sample to mock-up, I think that would be helpful.
All right. I think that also sounds like maybe the beginning of a motion, unless someone else has additional comments on it.
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation with one slight change to the second bullet point to list requiring a site visit to review a mock-up for installation and color and faux jointing. And then all the rest of the bullets would stay the same.
All right. Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Commissioner French, I'll second that.
I have a second for Commissioner French. Is there any further discussions on this?
This is Commissioner Powell. I just wanted to make a amendment to make sure that we were clear that it should return onto Calvert Street. I didn't know if that needed to be clarified or not, but
I think that's worthy of clarifying so that the mortar that is, or the stucco is proposed to Mass Street will turn the corner onto Calvert and run the entire length of the historic structure or the first bay. What are you thinking there? Or wait for the design team's input?
it should go where the brick is different. So I think it's the entire length of Calvert Street.
That seems like sage guidance. Go where the brick is different.
I mean, it's to the notch.
Right. All right.
Notch at the L. Yeah.
Commissioner Penza has also another recommendation to add, and that is following Steve Shen's letter and recommendation about the windows and the 2/2 and the Baltimore bullnose and also the vestibule doors. So I think that's probably inherent in all this, but I just want to make sure that we're on board with including that in here.
Okay, so we have two friendly amendments. Commissioner Renan, do you accept those friendly amendments to your motion?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much. All right, so are there any further comments or questions? All right, so let's try and restate this. We have a motion for staff approval with one revision and two additional recommendations. The second bullet point will be revised to state that requires site visit with mock-up for installation and color and scoring patterns. We have a second revision, we're going to add an additional bullet point stating that the stucco is to turn the corner on Calvert Street and all the way down where we see a difference in brick type. And then last but not least, we have a third bullet point that is focusing on the detailing of the window and door surrounds to mimic the traditional Baltimore bullnose. Is that way to characterize what you said there, Commissioner Penza?
Sounds good.
All right. Any further comments? Hearing none, a vote of aye will indicate you're supporting of the motion on the table to support the staff recommendation with amendments. And Eric, will you please call the roll?
Chairman Powell.
Aye.
Chairman Bryant.
Actually, their commissioner's not chairman, said the chairman.
Oh, right. Commissioner Penza.
Aye.
Councilman Bullock.
Aye.
Commissioner Renan.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
And Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
And the ayes have it.
All right, and our motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, and our next item of business is 1012 to 1020 Morton Street in the Mount Vernon Historic District. The request is to review a revised design to construct a 4-story vertical addition. The applicant is SM&P Architects, and the staff reviewer is once again Anthony Stewart with Caitlin supporting. Anthony, please take it away.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed site within the Wrigley Delight. The property is in Mount Vernon Local Historic District. Next slide, please. This next slide.
I don't think those first two maps were correct.
I know. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I don't know how those two items.
So we all know it's in Mount Vernon on Vernon Street between West Eager and Chase. So let's be clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, this is the correct map here. It's in Mount Vernon. The subject area is composed of 4-story carriage houses of varying in heights. The carriage houses are located in the middle of the block on the west side of Morton Street between Eager Street and South Chase Street. To the north, the rears of these properties front on Deb Alley, and the buildings are part of a set of 8 carriage houses that make up the buildings fronting Morton Street. The carriage houses are all contributing to the historic district. Next slide, please. The buildings were carriage houses in the mid to late 19th century. The buildings were converted to automobile uses by the early 12th century. Next slide. This area of Mount Vernon was a hub to the auto service industry in Baltimore. The buildings on Morton Street were all housed various auto services needs, including car dealerships, auto repair shops, and garages by the 1950s. These uses had largely moved out of Mount Vernon, and the buildings housed warehouses and laboratories. In the 1980s, the buildings were re-imaged as locations for creative and retail use, including the art gallery, dance studio, architecture studio, and clothing store, and a salon. Next slide. 1012 Morton Street is the home of CrossFit Studio, and 1018 through 1020 is the garage. The other buildings are not currently have tenants as a result of continuous change in the use, and the interior buildings appear to have been extensively modified since their construction. Next slide. This is another image of the rear elevation of the buildings. Next slide. So the background, this says, next slide, has been, some background to this building has been going on since 1994. And the most current was back in June when the commission approved that the staff's recommendation for the condition that the architect minimize the garage door entrance to its original size and use a translucent glass for the garage door and reduce the visibility of the roof terrace at 1012 Morton. Next slide. So the proposal here now is for the construction of a 4-story vertical addition. Next slide. The applicant proposes to modify the previously designed, which is located on this slide here at 1012 Morton Street, to add from 3 stories to 4 stories. Next slide. The modification is the new proposal would have a height of 48 and 8 inches, which is 8 feet higher from the original previous proposal. Next slide. The original proposal included the roof terrace at 1012 Morton. Next slide. The updated proposal has incorporated the commission's condition to reduce the roof terrace at 1012. Next slide, Debbie. Right here. So they have removed it since then, or the redesign. Next slide. CHAP applied Chapter 2 design guidelines for additions, new construction, and non-contributing buildings. The revised proposal includes a vertical addition that is approximately 48 feet and 8 inches above the roof line of the existing buildings, which range in height. The overall height of will be roughly 81 feet. Should the changes in grade impact the height, this is within the limits of the area of 140. Next slide. Staff applied 2.1 guiding principles for design. The guidelines state that design new buildings to visually relate to the historic environment, respect the established design precedents in the immediate area, and the guidelines state contemporary architecture and design that reflects its current time, place, use, and culture is accepted, provided that the design is compatible with the character of the historic district. The proposed addition will extend 4 stories of the historic building with a total of 81 and 8 inches. The immediate area includes 2-story carriage houses along Morton Street. The large scale for the 4-story row houses along Charles and Chase Street, approximately 53 feet and 0 inches. The mid-rise Chase house, approximately 180 feet, and 2- and 4-story office buildings at Chase Street, large scale. These 3-story buildings at the Eager Street and the 3-story row houses on Cathedral. Next slide. The proposed new construction is contemporary in design. The location is deeply set back from the front elevation, and the design is simple with clean lines. This meets the guidelines. This proposal is compatible and secondary to the more elaborate historic carriage houses elevations fronting Morton Street. Next slide. The one area that doesn't meet the guidelines is the garage door entrance. It should be the original size and use a translucent glass for the garage door. Next slide, please. Staff applied 2.2 site design. This is unusual as no buildings in the vicinity have tiered or setback massings through. There are a wide variety of heights within the block. The sustainable setback will help visually disconnect the addition from the historic facade. Next slide. Staff applied 2.3 scale and form in the proposed 5-story building, significantly larger than the other buildings that front Morton Street. However, Chase House and 17-story building on Feature Street is directly opposite of Deb Alley, and the 4-story row houses at the Charles and Chase are approximately 53 in height. The proposed flat roof is compatible with the surrounding flat roofs. Next slide. This is the proposed first floor, which will have commercial tenant space and 20 parking spaces on the upper.
There was no image on that last slide.
That's weird. There's an image on the current one that I'm looking at. Is it not loading, or is it just not?
We can see the frame, but we can't, and the label proposed first floor, but there's no graphic to go with it. All right, commissioners, are you all seeing the same issue?
Loading issue.
Yeah, it's a blank. I mean, yeah, generally blank. But the second floor plan showed up when you flipped momentarily. Yeah, Steve.
I'm looking at it. Mine has the image. I'm not sure what's going on there. Yeah, so the second floor. So I apologize for that not loading. And next slide. This is the third floor. And we'll have next slide, please. And next slide. So this is the front east elevation. It is composed of steel framework and filled with brick and metal windows. East and west elevation of the vertical addition are composed of large-scale recessed windows, walls, and display modular composition of the steel framework. Each modular feature and Juliet balconies with contemporary metal railing. Next slide. This is the north elevation, which faces a small footpath alley. The proposal of the north elevation includes openings and a series of windows for historic first and second floor. The upper floors of the new addition feature a similar central window at the corridor and the 12 floor-to-ceiling windows on the easement. Next slide. South elevation. And next slide. It's the rear. The portion of the rear of the historic fronting Deb Alley were approved for demolition in March CHAP hearing. The historic rear elevation will be retained at 1012 Morton Street and 1020 Morton Street, functioning as a bookend to the rest of the elevations. Next slide. Neighborhood comments. I heard from Baltimore Heritage Johns Hopkins who approved of this project, as they did before. And recommendations, next slide, is that staff recommends final approval for the revised proposal with the condition that the applicant minimize the garage door entrance to its original size and use a translucent glass for the garage door. And that's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Anthony. Commissioners, do we have any questions for Anthony?
Commissioner Penza has a question. Anthony, have you discussed this garage door with the applicant and they're okay with all this?
Anthony?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I have not, this has not been discussed. No, this is, I believe, the first time they're hearing this particular one. I mean, from the last time it was discussed with them but not recently.
All right, but it sounds like it's pretty clear it can be a condition of it's part of the recommendation here, so there shouldn't be any surprise about that, and that can certainly come back to staff if nothing else to confirm. Thank you, Commissioner Penza. Does anyone else have any questions for Anthony at this point in time? If not, is the applicant here and like to address the commission at this point?
Hold on, I'm looking for the applicant. And Anthony, who is going to speak on behalf of the applicant? Is it going to be, is Howard Chambers going to speak or someone else going to speak on?
Anthony, we can't hear you.
I don't know. I can't. John Burnett will speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
He just put a chat. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm going to unmute him. All right. John Burnett, you've been unmuted.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
We can.
All right. Well, I guess first off, thank you all for giving us the chance to present this and put this back in front of the commission, and for your time. And thank you, Anthony, for walking everyone through it. I think, big picture, we are bringing this back. We got it approved just right towards the beginning of the pandemic. Generally speaking, the project has been pretty well on hold, dealing with kind of the uncertainties of the pandemic and trying to make it work in confusing times, I think is the best way to put it. And ultimately, the addition of this fourth floor or this, new level over our previous proposal is all about making the proposal work for Howard and making it a viable project. Generally speaking, we have tried to avoid changing anything else. Anthony did note that we pulled the roof terrace off of 1012, and I will say I'm sure the garage door can work. The translucent glass is fine, and I do think we looked at reducing the size, so I don't see an issue with that as well as far as the recommendations. But I think overall, we've tried to keep the spirit of the project what it was previously, and generally simple, bring some additional life to these buildings, which are kind of important to us in the neighborhood as well as the city, and then also bring some additional life to Morton Street. And that's where we stand currently.
All right. Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Burnett? Hearing none. Stacy, is anyone else signed in who'd like to testify?
Yes, and while they're speaking, I'd like to let other folks know if they'd like to testify to please, as with everybody else, just indicate in the chat or use the raise hand function. First, we have Angela Santoni and William Bagley. So Angela and William, I'm going to unmute you.
Great. Thank you so much. This is William Bagley. My wife, Angela Santoni, and I, we own 15 West Chase Street is a single family home that abuts the property that we're discussing today. And I do have a few questions. I have a question about parking. From the plans, it seems there's originally there were quite a few units that were going in, and now you're looking to expand the number of units in the building. How have you provided for parking that won't be disruptive? Because there really is already a terrible shortage of parking in the area. So I'm interested to hear about that. I have a few questions. I don't know if you want to do one at a time or should I lay them all out?
Let's get all your questions, and then we'll figure who the right person to answer them is.
Okay. Yeah. So there's the parking of, long term, like once everything's built. We have a lot of also concerns about parking and disruption to the neighborhood during construction. Particularly, we have a historic structure on our back lot. You can see our house on the map there, and it's effectively 12 or 15 feet away from the I think it's the northeastmost corner of the building, and I'm concerned that the actual physical impact of construction in the area is likely to result in destabilization of our carriage house in our back courtyard there. Let's see. Regarding impact to the neighborhood, I wanted to make sure that it's put on record that speaking with our neighbors, we're quite concerned about some of the things like sewage and pest control that will inevitably accompany construction of this size. And we wanted to be sure that we could have a direct contact with someone who will be responsible for an emergency response, say the sewer to back up or something like that because of the construction, that be made available to the public.
We are actually concerned and would like to request a visit, if possible, to see the impact on the homes actually on West Chase Street, the unit block of West Chase. We're a unique street in that our street is predominantly residential. And that additional story, our concern is that it will block the light and air into our homes. So we'd like to request that somebody actually comes and looks at it from that perspective. And then we also have concerns regarding the supply chain because we tried to do construction. So with a construction of this magnitude, we have concerns about supply chain issues and the length of construction and wanted to ask about that. I think that's it, right?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Let's take these a little bit at a time here. First of all, a couple of things that we can take off the record because we don't take off the list here because we don't have purview over it. They're great questions, just not ones that we can answer. And I would encourage you to speak with the developer and the contractor when the time comes through because you're absolutely right to be concerned about supply chain questions. All those working in the field here recognize it's been a challenge these days, but we have no say over that, but certainly it'd be appropriate to ask for a construction schedule from the developer. As for a site visit, I believe staff has been out to visit your site there. We could certainly ask that Anthony or Caitlin go back out and take a look again about this. Once again, sewage and pest control, it's a great point, but not really in our purview, but being, once again, assuming the developer and contractor are of good faith, that they'll be certainly share a point of contact. So if something does happen that they can be reached. And last but not least, question about parking. That is one question I would have for Anthony. How many spaces are shown? And do we know what the zoning minimum and maximums are for this site? Anthony?
Hi, this is Stacy. I'm counting 17 spaces, but this might be another good question for the development team. Yeah.
Okay, so if Mr. Burnett could kind of jump back on here, let us know how many parking places are slated for this building.
And he's unmuted.
Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Okay. So as far as parking goes, I believe we are showing the same number we showed before, and I believe it is 17. It is there is a higher requirement for the building overall, given the number of units that are in it, and the developer is exploring options to accommodate that within the zoning code, as far as offsite parking that's nearby, or potentially bringing a question to zoning. So I can't rightfully say where it will land, but as far as what is provided, there's some provision for parking within the building and an understanding that that is something that is of concern, certainly to him as well. The developer wants to be able to provide that as well as to the neighborhood. So that's the facts as they stand.
Thank you. Have you been through SPRC review yet?
We have not yet. No, that's an upcoming step.
So once again, clearly the site plan review committee is actually where a lot of these questions should be raised. And I would encourage folks to attend those meetings as well too.
And also to answer some of your questions, Tom, it is in C2, that's the zoning district. Also, this could qualify for a historic exemption for parking, which is available for properties older than 50 years, and which, we don't want demolition of historic properties to create parking. So I think that'll probably be discussed in SPRC and with the applicant, as this moves forward.
Thank you for clarifying that. Do we have any other questions? Or Stacy, do we have anyone else who's signed in to testify?
All right. So regarding protection of the historic structures in our property that abut.
Yes, sorry, I forgot to write that down. And once again, there's a certain expectation that, that any construction activity will not adversely impact adjacent properties. I'm not sure whether we can place a condition on it that the crack and motion monitors should be installed, or whether the contractor anticipates doing that. Once again, maybe we could bring Mr. Burnett back up here. If he's had any concerns about adjacent properties or any conversations with the contractor about how they are going to manage construction in a dense urban environment here.
Sure. So as far as having conversations with the contractor at this preliminary stage, we haven't really dived that deeply into it, but certainly concerns about adjacent properties is something that we take into account when thinking about it. The thing that I think is probably the most useful to share with this is the design concept for the structure, such as it is, relies on spread footings, which are, comparatively minimal, given the construction type of the addition above being wood frame construction. And we are not proposing a basement for this building. So excavation of, those spread footings would be, generally more shallow than you might find with something that is a basement or otherwise, which could impact adjacent structures. But Tom, ultimately, I would agree with you that is 100% something that's very important and part of discussions with the contractor, and sort of when that phase comes is, critical and needs to happen on any construction project.
Are there, once again, stepping a little bit beyond our purview here, but have there been discussions or there are plans as the project moves forward to have community presentations, potentially introducing the contractor and understanding what their scheduling and process will be, so the community will be a little better informed about what's going on?
I would imagine that can be accommodated. I won't say for sure since it's a little out of my purview, but I'm happy to pass it on, and I would imagine that that could be accommodated given the concerns of the neighbors and such that it is a small footprint in a narrow street too.
All right. Thank you very much. Stacy, is there anyone else signed in to testify?
Yes, Steve Seeger is signed in to testify, so I'm going to unmute him now. All right, Steve, you're unmuted.
Hi, this is Steve. I have really two questions. I didn't see in the presentation any indication of the materials, either on the new building, especially the kind of north and south elevations, what is being planned there, and also what's being proposed for the historic facades along Morton Street, specifically the two northernmost buildings that currently have a kind of badly applied stucco that's kind of peeling off in areas. Just wondering what the plan is for the historic facades.
Anthony, can you potentially, or Stacy, can you call back up the elevations, and if either Anthony or Mr. Burnett can share the materials here?
And Anthony's having a little bit of microphone trouble if he's not connecting, but we have Mr. Burnett unmuted again, and the elevations are pulled up here.
Sure. So I can say, first and foremost, as far as materiality goes, we're not proposing any changes with this. So what was shown previously remains, especially as it pertains to the historic facades, the two-story masonry facades. But as far as the 1012 and 1016, we're proposing painting them a uniform color, as is shown here. They were previously a uniform, or they are currently painted, sorry. So that would remain I believe on 10/18/20, we are proposing either retaining what's there or potentially peeling it back to the masonry below and painting it also a uniform color. I know early conversations with CHAP staff way back in our, pre-pandemic days, I guess, when we first got this started, the nature of those two facades having been kind of modified extensively over the years made them a little less sacred, it sounded like. So we're trying to do something that works with the overall composition of the street and isn't too invasive. And then 10/14, the intent is to, one, use it as the entrance to the sort of apartment part of the building, sort of the lobby entrance. It is the facade that's currently, as it remains unpainted. It has a really nice masonry to it. And so the intent there is to clean it and probably repoint as needed and leave it otherwise as is. So those are kind of walking up, at the pedestrian level of Morton Street. As far as the north and south elevations, what we're showing currently is a brick. I think we're showing a thin brick, but sort of a black brick that has kind of a modern look to it, but keeps a little bit of reference to that neighborhood character. And that is as it was previously as well.
So you're saying you're currently showing, in reviewing this, we're anticipating that there would be no changes to that. So if you're showing brick, we would expect brick to remain there, or if not, you might end up coming back before the commission for review, because part of what we're reviewing is the materiality. Is that understood?
That is understood. I believe that when we had received approval previously, it was understood
can you guys
that
hear
we would
me?
be coming back to staff for final material check and approval and that presentation. And that's what we've been operating on.
Yeah, if staff can jump in here. The project received final approval from the commission back in, I think it was June of 2020. And at that time, the general scope for the materials, though not the specific details, was approved by the commission. So what we're seeing today was just the revised proposal to add that additional floor. We weren't, that's why the additional details regarding the materials were not provided, because that is not changing from what was proposed in 2020.
Understood. Just clarifying that some time has passed, and what I've heard several times today is what we're showing currently. Just making sure that what they're showing currently is what we're anticipating seeing, and that we're not going to see down the line, oh, we're over budget, we're going to propose an alternate material. Or if they do, they would be subject to, consulting a staff, and if it was significant enough, they'd have to come back to us to reapprove.
Understood.
All right. Thank you for clarifying that, Caitlin. Stacy, who else is signed in at this point?
No one else is signed in to speak, so I guess we can do a last call here for anybody else who wants to speak on this item. You can either use the raise hand function or notify me in the chat. Angela Santoni and William Bagley would like to ask one more question. Would that be all right?
If no one else is signed in, that would be fine.
All right. We've been unmuted.
Great. Thank you so much for accommodating this. We only purchased within the past year, so we weren't part of the original, discussions for the original approvals. But from what I understand, originally they had sought higher. It's been granted to 3, and during this meeting right now is to discuss the addition of another floor. Is that correct?
Sorry, can you restate that?
So originally the building was proposed at 5 stories. It was rejected at 5 stories. It was approved at 3 stories. We'd like to understand the reasoning behind 4 stories and why 4 stories would be approved when 5 stories was not.
The applicants have come back. We initially approved 3 stories. That's correct. They've come back to 4-story with a 4-story proposal. and shared with us their proposed revisions, and it's been found acceptable to staff, and we are currently contemplating whether to approve that or not.
And if you'd like, we can share with you the previous proposals. I will say that architecture changed dramatically between 5 stories and 3 stories, with a significant setback that wasn't proposed for the 5 stories. I believe they changed architects as well. So if you'd like, we can share all of those public documents with you. You can see the evolution of the project.
So it was about appearance, not about height?
All of the above. I mean, it was a combination of what it looked like, and at 5 stories, I believed, at least with the design that was shown at the time, it was deemed to be too aggressive. Caitlin is correct. It is a revised proposal, and we view things in their totality, both the design and the height, scale, and massing of things.
So again, I'd like to request a visit from the perspective of West Chase Street, looking at the building and the impact on our homes if the building goes up another story before it's approved.
Duly noted. We'll see what we can do in terms of getting some CHAP staff out there to take a look. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for expressing your questions and concerns here. Stacey, is there anyone else who has signed in wishing to testify?
I have not received any more communication from anybody indicating that they would like to testify on this matter.
All right. Let's do going once, going twice, and we are done. So, commissioners, shall we deliberate? Or just go for a motion for an approval? We need something to happen.
This is Commissioner French. Did we ever get an answer on the recommendation to minimize the garage door entrance and use translucent glass? I didn't catch that in the architect's response.
The applicant acknowledged that they could accommodate that.
They could accommodate that. Okay. Okay. Well, I can move approval of staff's recommendation that we for the revised proposal, and with this same condition.
All right. So I have a motion for staff approval. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Penza can second that.
I have a second from Commissioner Penza. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, a vote of aye will signify support of the motion on the table to support staff recommendation. Eric, will you please call the roll?
All right. Commissioner Powell.
Aye.
Commissioner Bryant.
Aye.
Commissioner Penza.
Aye.
Councilman Bullock.
I think he had to step off at 2.
Okay. Commissioner Renan.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
And Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
So I'm counting 6. Is that correct, Eric?
That's correct.
To provide quorum, the chair votes aye as well. We have 7, and on we go. All right. So our next topic is 600 South Caroline Street in the Fells Point Historic District. The proposal is a concept review to construct a 4-story vertical addition. The applicant is Chasen Development, and staff presenter will be Eddie Leon. Eddie, please take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. We have for your review 600 South Caroline Street. This is the first concept review 2 hearing to construct a 4-story addition at the site. The site was previously reviewed. This is the building, the Meyer Seed warehouse building, which had actually been a car showroom and repair, truck repair location when it was originally constructed. It's at the western edge of the Fells Point Historic District, and is also working in conjunction. The same developer is working on the building behind it on Alisana Street for an addition there as well. The property was being jointly reviewed by the Planning Department's UDAP panel and the CHAP Commission. Chasing Development is simultaneously pursuing the redevelopment of the site at 1900 Alisana. That's the site I'm showing you. It's separated by a narrow alley called Spring Street. The project will consist of 172 luxury boutique apartments and will have ground floor retail. At the December 2021 CHAP hearing, the Commission approved the general height and massing and proposal, along with the following recommendations: to remove a gray framing from the exterior, simplify and consider studying finishes that can create subtle detailing to the wall surfaces, and push the overall mass in each elevation so that it aligns with the bays of the ground floor building. Staff looked at the proposal under guidelines 2.4 building features, 2.41 building entrances, 2.4.5 roofs, 2.5 materials and detailing, 2.5.1 doors and windows, 2.5.2 materials. This is the original proposal as brought in December of 2021. As you see, the ground floor level is being reopened. The windows and doors are being made contemporary with metal framed industrial-like windows and door entries. The proposed addition stands above it. This proposal originally included this gray framing, which the Commission requested that the applicants remove. The applicants have returned with their current study. The central bay area is pushed back, set back. The windows in that bay location are symmetrical in its layout. The two side bays on, as we look here on Caroline Street and also on the Alisana Street, the window fenestration pattern is asymmetrical, creates an added interest to the building, the staff feels. The paneling is cementitious paneling. The corners are set back as well with corner balconies and glass railings. The roof is flat, so therefore any mechanical equipment which is planned for on the site would not be visible from the ground floor. Here is a view of the study proposal, looking at the southern section of the South Caroline elevation. This is the Alisana Street elevation and shows the corner balconies, which help push it visually into alignment with the bays on South Caroline elevation, as well as being pushed in on both its east and west sides. The Commission, this is the proposal around the corner, literally almost around the corner at 1900 Alisana. The same architect, Justin Cito, is working on this as well. Just to give you a context of the direction of the design they are pursuing outside the district. The proposed design will reopen the closed openings of the original historic warehouse and showroom building. Openings will have metal storefront windows and doors. The proposed roof will be a flat with a parapet edge. The height of the parapet blocks any rooftop equipment. The equipment will be located in the central opening of the new addition. The new corners will be simple and will not detract from the historic building. The new windows on the addition will be sliding or bottom transom or casement styles. They're symmetrically spaced in the recess center. The other elevations and windows are asymmetrical but appropriately spaced. The corners have balconies and sliding glass doors. The windows on the historic base will be industrial replica aluminum. The corner balconies will have glass rails. The proposed addition will be sheathed in the fiber cement panels. The corner balconies will be painted steel. We have a front elevation and a plan. There will be a central courtyard. On the rooftop, nearest the courtyard area will be the location of mechanical equipment that will not be seen from any street level. There will be a terrace deck at above the first story that will cover the perimeter of the building there. Staff finds the proposed construction meets the CHAP Commission recommendations from the December 2021 hearing motion and also meets the design guidelines. The addition is designed to be secondary to the historic base of the former car showroom garage. The applicants have removed the gray framing that was originally proposed. The design of the facades have been simplified with the use of cement panels and windows. The overall building mass has been pushed back on each elevation as recommended, including the corner balconies. The Fells Point Design Review Committee have been meeting informally with the applicants. The applicants are more than happy to meet again with the full Design Review Committee. About a week and a few days ago, the CHAP commissioners convened the Architectural Review Committee, and the applicant presented their plans and got feedback about their design and additional cues to follow. Recommendation, approval of the concept design, and return to the full commission with final materials and details. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Eddie. Commissioners, do we have any questions of Mr. Leon? Hearing none. Stacy, who is signed in to testify?
So Nate Prattle, and we can also unmute the architect, but I'll unmute Nate because he has his hand raised, and he can indicate if he'd like the architect to speak as well. But Nate, you've been unmuted.
Great. Thank you, Stacy. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good afternoon. Nate Prattle here from the Chasing Companies, and would like to have the project architect sort of summarize some of our revisions, but very quickly, I want to, in particular, thank Eddie Leon for all his work, a very thorough and detailed staff report. And yeah, this has really been a collaborative effort, not only, CHAP staff, but we had the meeting last week with the commissioners and the design review committee. We've had roughly 8 community meetings over the past 3 months, and not to mention the prior CHAP hearing, as well as 2 UDAP panel presentations as well. So we've really had input from a number of groups, and I think that shows in the product that we have here. We anticipate coming back to CHAP next month for final design details and materials. I would urge the commission to move staff's recommendation of approval, and also mention that you saw a difference in the style of images we presented, and we plan to have some more detailed renderings like you saw at the December CHAP hearing, correct? Like this one for 1400 Alisana. But before we got to that point, we wanted to iron out some of the revisions based on the comments. And I think Justin has done an excellent job responding, very closely to the specific comments. You can see the setbacks to align with the bays, the removing of the gray frame, which in itself not only reduces the actual height of the building, but creates, a sort of a minimized scale and massing as well. So we're very happy with where we are. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but why don't we have Justin sort of take it away on the details here.
All right, and I'm going to unmute Justin here. Justin Cito, you are unmuted.
Okay, thank you. This is Justin Cito. Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. So we are back to look at this building. I think Eddie has explained most of the revisions, so I'm just going to keep it short. So since the last meeting, we went back and basically took all the comments and have a revision of the building exterior, and we took out the brown colored framing that was at the front, and it made the building actually look shorter, and actually a few feet shorter in terms of the highest point, and it does simplify the overall new addition and made it cleaner. And that's basically I think everyone's intention is to make the addition simpler, cleaner, and have a nice contrast with the more heavy and like the brick structure of the existing building. And so the existing building will definitely be back to its old glory days. We're going to have like all the nice replica industrial windows and clean up all the brick and all that. And the new building is going to be set back from all sides, and and create some a visual brick from the base, the existing building. The corners, we use, as Eddie mentioned, we have kind of set in the corners with balconies and try to soften all the corners. And also the middle part has set back with a slightly different window configuration than the rest of the building, and also set in with a different color. So just to further visually break up the building with the different planes and also the different colors. Now, in terms of the windows, they're very simple, just verticals, and they kind of like display some graphic with the whole facade, and have a different like window combinations on each floor so that they don't vertically lined up, but yet has a given rhythm as they go along horizontally. So I think that's the basic changes for design, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Cito or Mr. Prettle? Hearing none, I'd like to thank the design team for listening to our initial comments and responding back with, I think, a very nice design here. I personally really like the playfulness of the panels shifting back and forth in the upper levels there. Stacy, who else is signed in to testify?
There is no one else signed in to testify for this item. So again, if anyone else is interested in testifying for this item, please indicate now. This is your turn. Nope, I'm not seeing anybody else indicating at this time.
All right, going once, going twice. Commissioners, what do we think?
Commissioner Penzo would like to follow staff recommendation, approval of concept design and return to full commission.
Is that an actual motion?
That's a motion.
I have a motion to approve staff recommendation. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Commissioner Bryan.
A second from Commissioner Bryant. Commissioners, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, a statement of aye will indicate you are supporting the motion on the table to support the staff recommendation. Eric will call the roll.
Commissioner Powell.
It looks like Anna's in the attendee list rather than the panelist.
Okay, I will move her up if we can go to the next person.
Yeah, Commissioner Bryant.
Aye.
Commissioner Penza.
Aye.
Councilman Bullock, he's gone. Absent. Commissioner Renan.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
All right, let's try Commissioner Powell.
So Commissioner Powell's on her phone and she's unmuted, so she has to stay. She can't move up.
And I heard an aye. Is that, we have an aye from Commissioner Powell. To complete the quorum, chair votes aye. We have a unanimous decision. All right, and now moving on. Our next topic of conversation is 1816 Alisana Street in the Fells Point Historic District. The proposal is a concept review to construct a third-story addition. The applicant is Adam Carballo, and once again, Eddie Leon will be our staff presenter. Eddie, please take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. We have 1816 Alisana Street in the Fells Point Historic District, proposing to construct a third and fourth-story addition on an existing building. The building is located just at the central and eastern area of Fells Point. The building is here in question at the intersection with Durham Street. It's a side alley. The remaining row house block context is that of three-story Italianates for the most part. The block immediately across from it is a parking lot and a more contemporary structure, several stories high. The applicants are proposing to construct 2 stories on this existing structure. The third story being planned for would be reusing as historic brick to continue the historic pattern, and then a setback 4-story above. The current front facade is this particular design piece that was added well before the district was created. Some feel somewhere between the 1940s and 1970s. The building has been reviewed by the staff among their changes for storefront improvements, rear balcony changes, and garage changes from 2007 through 2020. The side view here along South Durham Street, we can see the historic brick sides. It has been repointed or cleaned or and infilled at different points in time. Another view of the rear area. As you can see, there was some staircases and other openings here. The context across the street is there is a building that's 3 stories high that was reviewed by the commission, I think back in 2008, a long time ago now. And the typical other styles of houses along Alisana. The CHAP staff applied 1.17 alterations and additions section of the guidelines, retaining historic character defining features when planning alterations and additions to the historic building, design alterations and additions to be compatible, sympathetic to the character of the historic building, design additions to be compatible with the existing historic structure in massing, height, form, and scale, place additions on a secondary elevation. An addition may be contemporary in design or it may replicate the historic character of the main building. Where an addition replicates the historic character of the main building, creates subtle differences to clearly distinguish as a later structure, document existing historic conditions and drawings, photographs before beginning any alterations and additions. The applicant's proposing, as I said, to incorporate the existing front facade. They plan to build on the 3rd story a brick addition that is facing the alleyway. And then on top are proposing a cementitious panel and glass addition on the top that is set back, and a high parapet edge that will conceal mechanical equipment and proposed solar panels. The applicants will have revised their original submission. The earlier submission we gave some early feedback, and this is the latest proposal from the applicant. As you can see here, the windows will be matching on the 3rd story to proportions and locations and alignment with that of the 2nd and 1st stories. The top existing facade will receive a cornice treatment that will then continue along Durham Street and tie into the addition. The top 4-story, which is set back, will have a short balcony in the front with a glass railing for safety. The cementitious panels, the windows have been reproportioned to better suit the height and proportions of the building itself. And then we have a tall parapet edge above. From the front elevation, we see that the front windows
Did we lose Eddie or is it just me?
He disappeared, I think. Can't hear you, Paul. Yeah, can't hear you, Tom.
Sorry that. Yes, we seem to have lost Eddie, or I just thought he was being quiet and contemplative. So, Eric or Stacy, is there someone else who can continue to make the presentation while Eddie signs back in? Stacy, are you there? I saw your box blue here, but
Yes, sorry.
Can we even forward the PowerPoint?
Yeah, he's controlling it. Hold on 1 minute. If you guys can give me 1 minute, I can take over. Hold on a second. It might be more than a second. I'm sorry. Hang on. It's Eddie's computer froze, so he's rebooting. So hold on, maybe 1 minute. Can we take a 1 minute break so we can move this around? Hang on 1 moment.
We can take a pause. We seem to be beset by some technical gremlins today, so thank you everyone for your patience. So I need the intermission music. Or even just the Jeopardy theme, maybe. Please stand by, everyone. We are experiencing some technical difficulties, but we will be back with you in a moment here. So while we're waiting, Eric, any particular announcements about Baltimore preservation we'd care to share today?
We had a wonderful article that we will be sharing with the through the Compass magazine, an article on preservation in Baltimore and Philadelphia. So we're excited to share that with folks. Other things, we are moving forward with a lot of work on looking at the vacancies in our local historic districts and trying to get a handle, at least to quantifying those, and then figuring out if there's ways that we can sort of reduce those numbers of vacancies in our local historic districts. So that's something we'll be working on. Of course, there is the soft opening of the comprehensive master plan was just done about 2 weeks ago. So we will be embarking on that master plan process for the next couple of years, which will be very exciting. And we look forward to having historic preservation be front and center in that plan. And we hope that the folks listening here and former and new commissioners will also help us and guide us with our recommendations of where they see preservation helping to enhance the quality of life in Baltimore, and how that plan we could find recommendations to help Baltimore and help save old buildings. And I think that I saw some movement.
I'm back.
Okay,
All right. My apologies. The one of my devices here just suddenly lost charge.
Quite all right.
We were, as I was explaining before, we're looking at the front elevation, which shows the reconfigured front facade, the storefront, and the windows will be more proportionally located on the existing non-historic facade, and a cornice will be installed in with the new addition. Here's the glass railing, the addition on the 4th story. These are stairs that will allow the access to the mechanical equipment. The side elevation we see is currently existing. There's a rear garage. Now, the 3rd floor will have the brick addition, which will tie into the front facade. Here's the cornice band tying into the front elevation, and the addition of the 4th story above. The windows were much taller in the original proposal. These are shortened down and we feel are better suited to the style of the and proportions of the neighborhood and the building. Staff finds that the proposed construction meets the CHAP design guidelines in height, mass, and scale. The addition will not detract from or cause an adverse effect to the historic district. It creates a strong anchor to the corner of the block and improves the streetscape experience for the pedestrian. While the overall design meets the guidelines, the parapet edge on the fourth story roof we feel is too tall and out of scale with the rest of the building. The Fells Point Design Review Committee supports the plans as presented. Recommendation, approval of height, massing, and scale. Staff recommends reduction in the fourth floor roof parapet edge and that the final design return to the full commission. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Commissioners, are there any questions for Eddie? Hearing none. I would assume that Mr. Carballo would like to address the commission to start with, but Stacy, who all is signed in, if you can manage that.
Well, I think let's unmute Mr. Carballo because he is the one and only person with his hand raised and the applicant and the architect. So it's me.
Hello. Thanks for letting me present. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can. Thank you, sir.
Great. So as Eddie mentioned, this is actually the office of Carballo Architecture. This is our office in Fells Point. We have 14 employees and currently only 13 desks. So we are in need of some additional space. We've occupied this building since 2016. I'm also happy to say my primary residence is next door at 1818. So I've been a resident there since 2004. So I'm pretty anchored into this corner of Durham and Alisana Street. And we love our location. I would say more than half of my employees actually live in the neighborhood and are able to walk to work. And we wanted to sort of, continue our commitment to the neighborhood and also Baltimore City and enlarge our building in place. This will allow us to provide additional, not only desk space, but also a much needed conference room and, additional support space as our practice grows. We've presented to the FDRC already, as Eddie has mentioned. We have kind of played with this idea of the parapet at the very top end, the parapet at the top, and that, as Eddie mentioned, I have a 42-inch parapet at the top of the fourth floor in order to conceal rooftop equipment. I'm certainly willing to revisit that, possibly lower it, and I still need fall protection. So I was trying to avoid the expense of a glass railing at the top, but I might have to just bite the bullet and lower the parapet and then still create that kind of fall protection just to reduce the overall height. But I'm willing to explore that and come back to commission hopefully next month with a final design and detail, so we can hopefully start expanding our office.
All right. Thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions for Mr. Carballo? Hearing none, thank you for your ongoing commitment to the city of Baltimore, and I'm very envious of your commute, if nothing else. Stacey, has anyone else signed in or indicated a desire to testify on this matter?
I have not had anybody else indicate that they want to testify. No other hands are raised or any indication in the chat. So I guess this is a last call.
All right. No one's on the phone. So with that.
Oh, sorry. Yes, there are actually 2 phone calls. I'm sorry. But I know that there are a lot of folks on, I think, for the next item. So hold on. Let me unmute these 2 callers very quickly. Just as a reminder, if you come on more recently, if you call in, if your phone number, I'm going to read the first 6 digits of your phone number because that's what I can see. And it's 443-303. And if you just heard 2 beeps, are you here to speak for this item, 1816 Alisana, or another item, or just listening?
This is Veronica Owens, and I'm here for the Ashburton item.
Okay, great. Well, I'll unmute you for that item then. Great. And then the next person, if your phone number is 410458 and you just heard 2 beeps, are you here for this item, for the next item, or just to listen?
I'm here for the Ashburton item as well. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'll unmute you then. All right. Now we've gotten everyone, and there's still no one else who's indicated they want to speak on this item.
All right, so going once, going twice. There being no one else indicating a desire to testify before the commission, let's go to deliberation. Commissioners, what do you think?
This is Commissioner French. I'm just, wondering, maybe I should have asked this to staff, why the 4th floor roof parapet edge, reduction needs to come back to the full commission. Could it just that be reviewed at the staff level?
I think if
that is up to the commission to decide if they wish to just remand the final design back to the staff.
So I think we could certainly make that adjustment. It is a relatively minor aspect to review there. I would certainly concur that studying the parapet is appropriate, but we've got great staff. If we want to defer to them, I think that would be something that could be incorporated in the motion.
So given that, Commissioner French would like to make a motion to approve staff's recommendation with, final design resolution of the 4th floor parapet edge issue to come back to staff instead of the full commission.
And if staff cannot come to some consensus on it, then it will come back to the commission for review. Awesome. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Commissioner Bryant.
Second from Commissioner Bryant. Is there any further conversation? Hearing none, we have a motion on the table to approve the staff recommendation with the caveat that the final design will return to staff for review. With that, a vote of aye will mean you're in support of the motion. Eric, please take it away.
Commissioner Powell.
Aye. Can you hear me?
Commissioner,
Aye.
We can. Gotcha.
Yes. Thank you. Commissioner Bryant.
Aye.
Commissioner Penza.
Aye.
Commissioner Renan.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
And Chairman Liebel.
To complete the quorum, the chair votes aye. With that,
ayes have it.
Approved. And our next topic are actually 2 somewhat conjoined topics. This one will be for 3603 Sequoia Avenue in the Ashburton Historic District. The proposal is a concept review to construct a 2-story single-family house. The applicant is Vadim Bakayev. Pardon me if I butchered that. And the staff reviewer is once again Eddie Leon. Eddie, walk us through this, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. I do have 2 presentations of the exact same plans on side-by-side lots in the Ashburton neighborhood. So I will just forego the second presentation, but both designs are appropriate or for this locations for 3603 and 3605. The properties are located over here in the Ashburton neighborhood on Sequoia Avenue on the south side. The properties are located on an empty lot that has existed since the development was created in the early part of the 20th century. Is an empty lot with an existing curb cut. I'm mistaken. Is not an existing. There is no existing curb cut. That's my fault. The lot has existed since before the district was designated in 2007. There have been no requests for the site since the district was created in 2007. The applicant proposes to construct a new 2-story residence on an empty lot. The house is designed as a contemporary colonial revival with a hip to roof. This is the view of the lots here in question. As you can see, there are no existing curb cuts or driveways, as this was never constructed. Staff applied Chapter 2, 2.1 guiding principles for new design, 2.2 site design, 2.3 scale and form, and 2.4.5 roofs. The applicant's proposal is to build a single-family home on an empty lot. The proposed building with colonial revival wood frame structure will be blended into the fabric of the neighborhood, which is composed of buildings built in other early 20th century revival styles. While the structure will be designed in colonial revival style, it will be distinguishable from the surrounding historic buildings, particularly on the side and rear elevations, where the fenestration patterns are contemporary in design. The proposed new building will be located in the center of the lot, equidistant from the side yard property lines. The rear yard and front yard will have comparable setbacks to the neighboring properties. The proposed building setback and will match the neighborhood. Properties, the applicant proposes a main entry door through a colonial revival style portico that is contemporary design. The portico is centered on the facade, mirroring the neighborhood's facade across next to it. The proposed new building has a similar floor-to-floor heights to the adjacent properties. The first floor is approximately 2 to 3 feet lower than the surrounding properties. This was from the original proposal. The applicant has since modified it and complies with the surrounding elevations. The proposed building has a massing that's nearly identical to that of surrounding houses. The front elevation fenestration pattern is symmetrical in design. The building will have similar proportions of the buildings across and around the street. Dimensions of doors and windows openings match those of adjacent buildings. The new building will match the floor heights of the adjacent historic buildings. The roof line is nearly the same height as the majority of the adjacent buildings and other similar buildings in the district. The proposed roof style is hip and complements the roof styles of other buildings in the neighborhood. The proposed roof line is a simple design and will not have ornate or historic, is not ornate like the historic colonial revival buildings. The proposed building meets the CHAP guidelines for new construction in terms of height, scale, and massing. The building meets setback requirements, design and material requirements, hardy plank siding, wood doors, metal clad, wood windows on the facade, wood vinyl clad on the sides and rear, and composite trim elements. Staff recommends that the side elevations should be examined for additional window openings. Staff also recommends that the front and side elevations should be sheathed in brick. The applied shutters should be converted to fully functional shutters or removed entirely. The Ashburton Architectural Review Committee was provided the plans as per the CHAP guidelines and have sent us a letter and to the zoning office as well. They are in opposition at this time to the proposed plans. I'll go back to the recommendation shortly. The site in question is located here on the south side of Sequoia Avenue. The buildings to the left and to the right of the site are of a brick colonial, mostly style structures. Across the street is a more unique Spanish revival and colonial style architecture. The building is here in plan, centered on the site, set back as appropriate to the zoning. It is a colonial building, as you see, with a portico and a couple steps up. This is a correction to the following image, which showed much higher level steps, but the same proposed side and rear elevations. In context, 3603 and 3605 as compared to the existing surrounding buildings, which are one-story tall structures in brick and stone, and but within another couple houses, there are buildings of the same height. Staff recommendations for approval of the height, massing, and scale as the plans meet the CHAP design guidelines for new construction. Staff recommends that the applicant sheathe the exterior front and side elevations in brick to match the context of the adjacent properties. Install wood composite, or metal-clad wood windows on the front elevation. Make the proposed shutters fully functional or remove them from the proposal. And the final plans can be returned to for final review by the staff. Thank you, commissioners.
All right. Thank you, Eddie. Commissioners, do we have any questions for Mr. Leon?
Commissioner French, Eddie, are these separate lots already, or does the
Yes, they were already subdivided at some point in their history.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Any further questions for Eddie? Hearing none. Stacy, who all is signed in to testify?
I'm going to verify that the applicant can speak first. So I'm going to unmute Mr. Bakayev here. You've been unmuted.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you very much, Mr. Leon. It was very nice presentation. So yes, I mean, we're proposing to build 2 houses similar in design and ready to take off with the project.
All right. Something I'm sure is going to come up in some future folks who will be testifying here. I'd love to hear your perspective on it. You did a similar project around the corner, and in the end, the final build out did not conform with that which was approved, and you used some materials that are typically not allowed in the in one of our CHAP historic districts. Can you clarify what happened and how you propose to not allow that to happen again?
So there's 2 issues. The issue one was with the hardy plank on a side elevation, and that was just oversight. I mean, just was misunderstanding of letter to pursue. And as far as the windows, I mean, with the pandemic being there and the client ready to move in, we have, even right now, we have about 6 months to obtain the materials. So at that point, the decision was made is to trim out windows with the Isaac, just kind of give that detailing to match or kind of, to match what was additionally proposed. So just simply was no way to get windows at that point. And like I said, the lady who bought the house, she was ready to move in. I just had to make decision kind of quick. But the mistake was not, obviously not going back to Mr. Leon or, to CHAP to get that approved. And they're just going to try to work backwards. So, but this, going forward, just like I said, mistakes have been learned, and obviously the project will not take off until everything is on site. I mean, meaning that at least we have a delivery date and know that we can accommodate. So this will not have this similar problem in the future.
All right. Thank you for clarifying that. Commissioners, do we have other questions for Mr. Bakayev? All right. Hearing none. Thank you very much, sir. Stacy, I know we have a couple people who wish to testify here. Who is first up?
All right. First, we have Lawrence Campbell. And again, if anyone else would like to testify, please, you can, I know a number of people signed in after we gave the instructions, but you can either go to the chat and message the host that you'd like to testify, or you can go to where it says participants and you can click next to your name, the raise your hand function, or if you called, I will unmute you after we go through the folks who are connecting through their computer. So first I'm going to unmute Mr. Campbell.
Good morning, Commissioner, or good afternoon, Commissioners and fellow CHAP persons. Mr. Baka made a mistake. He did not tell the truth. Mr. Leon and I and several other persons met with him at the property at 3502 Chelsea, Cedardale, and Mr. Leon specifically expressed to him what was needed to change the windows, the front door, which was supposed to be a wood door, not a metal door, to change the windows and to put that siding on the back, but not have that siding on the side. And he said he would get that done before the house was sold. That was not what happened. He had the house for sale, and the persons were ready to move in because he sold the house before he finished the corrections, which he never did. He never corrected what Mr. Leon asked him to do and what the committee had asked him to do. So we're not in favor of him putting a house on Sequoia with potential defects or putting a house there that would be out of sorts with the rest of the community. My concern is that the houses are across the street, as Mr. Leon pointed out, are stucco. They're old Spanish houses. The houses on the rest of the block of Sequoia in the 35, 36, 37, 38, 100 blocks are all brick. And to put a house with the siding on it is not in keeping with the historical perspective of the community. And so I'm not in favor of him building any more houses in Ashburton until he completes what he's supposed to do with 3502 Cedardale, and that this house would be, for our purposes as a historical CHAP district, be kept in the design of the rest of the houses in the area. So I'm in opposition to it, and I think our person Noel Legay is going to speak for the CHAP committee. I'm just a member of the CHAP committee, and I just happen to come up first.
I see the other hand up as well. If I could ask one question of you, sir, for your opinion, setting aside the questions about the contractor developer, the design that was proposed, currently what's recommended by staff is to use that basic form, but do it out of brick. Would that remove your concerns about the use of siding where everything else on the block is brick or stucco?
Okay, so I see what you say. Sheathe the exterior front and side elevations in brick.
Correct.
That's not what showed up in the design.
That is correct, and that would be a point, is that what was shown in the design would be altered to be brick.
Okay, well then, if the front of the properties are in brick, I would not contest that. Okay, because that's in keeping with the design. I'm in contesting that he has proven himself unreliable and untrustworthy in saying that what he would do, and he didn't do what he said he was going to do.
That's a separate. I'm trying to break away the question about the design of the building from.
Okay, my position on that is if it's in keeping with the brick elevations to match the adjacent properties, I'm amenable to that.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Commissioners, any other questions? Hearing none, Stacy, who is up next?
All right, I'm going to unmute Noelle Legay to speak on this matter. Noelle, you've been unmuted.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for holding this meeting for all of us today. My name is Noelle Legay. I am the co-chair of the CHAP committee for the Ashburton Area Association. I've grown up in Ashburton my entire life and decided that, when I was old enough, I was going to purchase a home there. I currently reside in the 3300 block of Ashburton, of Sequoia Avenue, which is about 2 blocks down from where the 2 empty lots are that are going to have homes that are developed. Interestingly enough, when returning back home from living in another state, I actually have purchased a home that was renovated by Mr. Vadim and his team under Dream House LLC, not being aware at the time that, we were under a CHAP mandate or that work was, or that things needed to be approved through CHAP. I learned very quickly from my neighbors that there were so many things done on my house that were incorrect, did not receive approval, and no one was aware of, and that certain procedures were not done correctly for the exterior of my home, and they were not approved, and they were not done in decency and order. Living in the home, over the years, I have experienced several issues, spending thousands of dollars to revise, fix, or do things over that things that inspectors obviously would not be able to see when you are purchasing a home, unfortunately. Waterproofing, basement issues, piping, insulation, studs not being appropriately done in my home, so I can't hang things on my walls, having contractors come in and spending more money to fix a lot of the issues that are in my home. So firsthand, I have experienced not so much of a dream house situation. Aside from that, joining the CHAP committee, I was then also able to now understand what needs to be done because I am a person of compliance. So being a chair, we were able to come together and make sure that we are enforcing the ideas and upholding what we are as standing as a CHAP committee in Baltimore City with a high population of middle-class African-American families. While we were being in this community, obviously there's not a lot of land available to really do and develop completely new homes. Badem was able to again find a plot of land in the Cedardale block. At this time, and to Mr. Lawrence's point, we went through and all we asked was that could we get the respect that we were asking for in making sure that everything was done in decency and order. We followed up with Eddie several times. We did on-site visits. And we asked, could these things be corrected so that we could continue to preserve the historical preservation of our community? The outlined issues were there as far as hardy plank being applied, the windows, doing all the materials, fixing those things, and they were told in person to Vedem in May of 2021. We assumed that those things would be fixed. As through a walk in the neighborhood in July, I was able to meet our new resident who moved in closing on July 15th. I was shocked to see that, as well as the rest of our CHAP committee, because we were told that that all things would be fixed on the home prior to it being sold. While now we understand that there again is chain supply issues. From our understanding, if you don't have all of these things in order, then how were you able to have a clear to close or able to obtain a UNE permit to sell the home? Moving forward from there, these two homes that Vedem is saying that he would like to have on the block of Sequoia. Sequoia is one of our major thoroughfares and is a huge representation of the Ashburton area, of the Ashburton community. Sequoia is a major thoroughfare that has had previous mayors that have lived there, and many politicians. This is a staple road in our community. We are asking that if there is building that is happening, that it is indeed like to the community of what the rest of the houses look like. Nowhere on the 3300 to 3800 block, the boundaries of Ashburton, are there houses that are not fully brick and that don't have the historical roofs the historical roofing that is necessary to continue to preserve the architecture in that community. That lot, with grants and us getting a lot of our things in order as a community, we were considering doing other things with it because we have a new, robust and growing community. Unfortunately, those lots were sold. And that's fine. However, we are again asking that Mr. Vedem and his company respect what it is that we would like to preserve in the architectural preservation of our community. So even with these recommendations, it is made very hard and challenging for us to believe that things will be done in decency and order. If this committee goes ahead with the recommendations and also agrees to allowing him to build these two homes, then there needs to be a tight ring of oversight along the way to ensure that not only the exterior matches our community, but the interior as well, so that unsuspecting families or that families that want to buy into our community do not deal with the issues that I or other people that have had renovated homes from Dream House occur. I'm not sure how he does with new builds, but the renovation on my home, like I said, had a lot of issues, and I've spent thousands of dollars trying to correct those issues. I am not going to concede and say, yes, I will agree to the recommendations because we don't have any drawings or anything updated in front of us that say, yes, this is what he is planning on doing, or that he will make sure that these things are going to get done. So no, we don't concede. No, we don't approve. And yes, we do have to take issue with it because we are not certain that these things will be met the way it should. If we can go back to the slide of concept review number 1, just looking at that basic drawing in retrospect to the other homes that are there on Sequoia. No, I think maybe perhaps it's another one where yes, concept review 1, this one. This is just looking at that, to me, is just an eyesore. In this particular picture, it is indeed an eyesore, just looking at how those 2 homes will be standing out in that block in concurrence with the rest of the homes in the Sequoia, on Sequoia Avenue. So that's where we are. That's where we are with it. And I don't think that it's okay to allow anyone to come into unsuspecting communities that are really trying to preserve their historic value, that are really trying to, in the city, as all this new development happens, everything new, we really want to preserve what we have going as a historic community. So we would just want to hold everyone accountable, and we want to have the respect that we're asking for to make sure that everyone is falling in line and doing what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your community efforts there. Just to be clear, with your testimony there, were you testifying as the ARC chair or as a resident of the community?
As the ARC chair.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners, do we have any questions? Hearing none. Stacy, who else is signed in to testify?
All right. Next, I have Dawn Taylor. I'm going to go find her in the list here, and just thanks everybody for their patience. Dawn Taylor, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you all. I am co-chair with Noel in regards to the CHAP committee for the Ashburton community, and want to basically echo with both committee members and co-chair Noel and Mr. Campbell have mentioned that due to the level of distrust we achieved with the Cedardale property, we just have many doubts in regards to this developer proceeding as he has indicated for these new properties. Also, I wondered if there's a way to have different elevations completely for the 2 homes instead of them being identical. They can be similar, but why do they need to be identical in regards to 3603 and 3605? This neighborhood primarily has a lot of custom built homes that were built over time. You don't see very many homes that are identical to each other. Especially these 2 are going to be sitting right next door to each other. It's very unattractive. So the recommendations of staff, certainly if Mr. Vadim is going to make those modifications, we will review them. But we want to make sure that everyone will be holding him to the standards that we expect, because the homes are not only brick, they're stone. I happen to live on Sequoia myself in a stone property. So it's very substantial materials that were built in these homes many years ago. And we just are hoping to maintain the integrity of the community. And if he's willing to up his standards and do what's right in regards to the construction, the overall appearance of the properties, the curb appeal is very important, of course, and so is the interior. But we're just not happy at all with how everything started with him in the history in regards to how we've been treated. And so that's what I have to say in regards to opposing the current plan as it exists and looking forward to seeing whatever revisions that will be acceptable to the CHAP community, to the CHAP committee, and to the community. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Taylor. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Hearing none. Stacy, who else is signed in to testify?
All right, the next person is Carlton Curry. I'm going to unmute Carlton Curry. All right, Carlton, you've been unmuted. All right, well, maybe we can come back to Carlton Curry, but I see your hands up, so we'll come back to you. The next person, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to speak, and I'll be as brief as possible. I wholly incorporate the arguments of my neighbors, and I only speak to state that approval of this plans, the two plans as they exist, will wholly frustrate the purpose and the intent of this commission. You've previously heard of the quality of work. Even with the modifications, I think any person who asks for forgiveness in lieu of permission and compliance, as someone who has regulated healthcare professionals in the state of Maryland and compliance for over a decade, I find that argument wholly whimsical. And so I live on the 3500 block of Copley, so I run perpendicular to Sequoia, and I do think that number one, the elevations in tandem with the houses on either side would be problematic, and the building materials would be wholly problematic. And with that, I yield myself back.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Thank you very much, sir. Commissioners, any questions? If not, Stacy, who's up next?
Okay, next we have Jerry Gaylord. So let me unmute. Jerry, you're unmuted.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I am a member of the CHAP committee as well. And there were several additional issues that I'm sorry, I'm hearing myself. But there were some issues. In the original design on 3502, Cedardale, there was supposed to be a chimney. He decided not to do it. And when we confronted about it, he was saying something about that it had something to do with that newer homes didn't need a chimney. And he just didn't do it blatantly. And that's all he said. Even though most homes in the area do have a chimney, he decided to just change it and do what he wanted to do. And even though he was confronted, he just said it had to do with the new design and about service. But the reason we accepted that design based on the historical homes in the area and how they were, and that most homes in Ashburton do have a chimney. So it had nothing to do with what he was saying. It had something to do with what we were looking at the design originally and what we expected from him. And then again, he decided not to do it. Additional, when he did the driveway, it's just like a one-car driveway at 3502. Most homes have driveway going all the way, at least 3 to 4 cars. So he again just didn't take in consideration of what the homes are like in the area. As well as from a historical perspective, when the developers were developing homes, they made it a point to make sure no home looked alike. And what he's doing is just putting 2 side-by-side homes that are identical, which is not from a historical perspective of the developers who develop homes in Ashburton, made sure they didn't do. And I will reel back. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Gaylord. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Hearing none. Stacy, who is next?
All right. Next is, and I apologize if I don't say your name right, is Kendra Abaidu. Kendra, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Kendra Abedo. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. I think that I'm a 16-year-old resident of Ashburton, also living on Sequoia, and I think that my neighbors have made such a compelling testimony as to why we're in opposition here today. Ms. Legay, Mr. Lawrence, Mrs. Taylor have really laid out the foundation of our opposition here, and we would hope that you would honor that. It is so important to our community that we maintain our architectural preservation and that we are in good standing and from a 360 perspective from the exterior of our homes. We would hope that you would hold our recommendations in consideration and at this time reject the build of these two homes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Abedo? Hearing none. Stacy, who is up next?
Okay, next we have AJ Foster. AJ, you've been unmuted.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is AJ Foster, and I'm actually the president of the Ashburton Area Association. As all of the members of our community who have testified thus far have shared, we are in major opposition of this developer building upon the land that is available on Sequoia Avenue. As we've already shared, he has already constructed a property in our community that simply does not abide by CHAP guidelines, and there are several violations of city codes. One thing that no one on this call so far has mentioned is that Ashburton is a historically African-American community going back to the 1950s. I know that a lot of people on this call have a lot of respect for history in our city. And one thing that we have to keep in mind is that African-American communities in our city have been the subject of redlining and blockbusting and many other strategies that have really taken away from the character of African-American communities throughout the decades. One thing that we really pride ourselves on here in Ashburton is actually looking at this place that we are proud to call home. And one of the reasons why is because of such beautiful architecture that's here in our community. The lots that are on Sequoia Avenue are predominantly double lots. This individual who is intending to build these property has purchased two lots that are adjacent to each other that are actually single lots. If he builds two houses on these two individual lots, it would completely go against the character of Sequoia Avenue. I don't know if anyone on this call is or with the city is familiar with that section of our city, but it's beautiful. The streets are covered with trees. It's a tree-lined street. The houses sit back off of the roadway. They have really nice backyards, front yards, and side yards. If we can pull up the image of the empty lot, actually the one that's up right now, you'll see that there is a house on that corner that has grass all the way around it. It has a beautiful front yard, a beautiful side yard, and a backyard. If you look at the houses that are on the other side, you can see that all of these houses have beautiful landscaping, and it really adds to the character of our historic community. One of our values is actually preserving our community. And so we're really in opposition, not only of him building these houses on Sequoia Avenue, but we're also hopeful that you will assist us in ensuring that the property that he developed on Cedar Avenue is corrected. Because as it stands, as that house stands in our community, it is in violation of city expectations of properties in our city, and it is further in violation of CHAP guidelines. And so we're just trying to make sure that this African-American community remains what it is and that people from outside of it are unable to come in and destroy its character. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Foster? Hearing none. Stacy, who else is signed in?
So there are three callers, so I'll go through and see if any of the callers wish to testify. So first, I know Ms. Owens, you were caller number 6. You've been unmuted. Would you like to testify on this item?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity, commissioners and everyone listening today. I want to say that I've been a resident of Ashburton since 2007. And I purchased my home in Ashburton because of the jewel in the city of Baltimore. I wanted a single family house. And every house has an architectural element, integrity, and character to it. And so one of the things with this committee, and Noel and Dawn stated it along with the rest of the members in the committee, is we love the architecture in Ashburton. That's why we love living there. I think that a lot of times, and it's still happening, over the years, and I think Nicole really stated it to you, that developers have been coming in for years in our community and not abiding by these rules. I believe one of these parcels could have even been a vacant to value property. And because it was a vacant to value, and I'm not sure if it was, but we would think that the integrity is important for this developer. And that integrity is not only on the exterior of the home, but most importantly, for the interior to be built the right way. To have that home conveyed to a new homeowner, which we know that person has saved for years to try to amass the amount of money, especially with homes and affordability, to be able to live in a home where you don't have to worry about anything. And if it's renovated, it should be restored properly. That's what we're asking for. We're asking that, number one, we ask this developer, what is he going to do to fix the home that was sold? And then two, we want to abide by the staff recommendation that was made to have brick on the exterior. And as President AJ said, or one of the others stated, if these are two homes, why can't they look distinct in character instead of just something that he pulled out of a book, or that they can't look distinct within the two homes. So again, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for abiding by our rules in our historic neighborhood.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Hearing none. Stacy, we have two more people on the line to speak with us.
Yes. I'm going to mute the next caller. If your number is 410-458. We just talked a minute ago and you said you were here for the Ashburn item. Would you like to testify, or are you just listening?
Yes, my name is Tori Burns, and I'm a resident of Ashburton as well. And I just want to echo what has been stated so well by our president, CHAP members, and other community members of Ashburton. When I learned about 3502 and the violations that were made, and then that the same developer wanted to build two new homes on Sequoia, I really was alarmed by that, particularly by the fact that there were violations that weren't corrected. And I would ask that you please give some very serious consideration but that you not allow further building on Sequoia until the violations on Cedardale are addressed. I just think that that is really important. It does speak directly to the integrity of our neighborhood and the other homes in our neighborhood. And I think that, as I said, other neighbors have spoken so well to the point that lead to what I hope will be a decision by you to not allow further building, particularly until issues on Cedardale are addressed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Hearing none. Stacy, who else is left in to speak before the commission here?
There's one more caller. If your number is 443-415 and you just heard two beeps, are you here for this item? Or just listening? Okay. I also just want to point out that Commissioner Powell is not currently on the call either. So we may need to count a quorum.
All right.
Hoping
So,
this caller was Commissioner Powell, but it's not.
all right. So, commissioners, we can debate for a moment here to maybe get a sense of where we are. But let's do a count to see whether we have quorum or not before we try and vote. So,
I just want to say I think Commissioner Powell is here. The first six digits are 410 493. That's her.
I'll go look for her.
Okay.
All right. Commissioners, what do we think?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner French.
Yeah, I'll start. It's Commissioner French. We often don't get a lot of projects coming before us on our agendas from Ashburton, but I think every time we do, I'm always just so amazed to just be reminded of its rich and storied history and the diversity of the architectural styles there. And what's so amazing is the neighborhood residents are so involved. There just seems to be this sort of strength of community and bonds of community that kind of come out in these hearings when development is being proposed and the integrity of the community is being challenged like this. So, I mean, I would say, I would agree with, all of the testimony that we've heard. And I would say, there's definitely a trust issue and a respect issue here. And I think
that's me, Stacey.
That warrants,
Can you hear me,
that warrants having I would suggest that the applicant, go back and do more work with the community and come up with a whole nother plan, because it sounds like there's lots to work out here, and this is not, these buildings aren't ready to be approved by the commission, in my opinion.
All right, thank you, Mr. French.
This is Commissioner Edwards. I agree with what Commissioner French just said. I think that the trust issue is a huge one, and so that even if we were to recommend the sheathing with brick, that's still not going to be addressed. We can't be confident that this developer will adhere to that. And I also agree with the community that the design does not respect the kind of architectural richness and variety that's in the neighborhood. And I would like to see more put into that, even with the brick. I don't think that the current design fits in with the context of the neighborhood.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, other thoughts?
This is Commissioner Renan. I would concur with what the two previous commissioners just said. I think I want to say it's rare that we have unanimous sort of opposition from the community, or at least that we hear it that way. But that's what we seem to have here, and it seems to me we'd be remiss for not listening to that.
Commissioner Penza agrees. I think I really appreciate the strong community. Sorry, my video's on. I really appreciate the strong community input on this. And although we really don't have purview over the trust issue, we can recommend, as Commissioner French suggested, that the developer, work with community and really try and gain that back. I think the diversity in the neighborhood is something that should be maintained. Having the exact same building right next to each other is a little awkward there. Just in doing my Google Earth and zooming around there, it looks like there are a lot of similar buildings, but they might have a front porch, or maybe there's a porch on half of it or something. So I think that there's a way that this developer can take what he has now and work it in and be a little bit more thoughtful about the adjacent homes that are really low eave lines, and maybe a front porch can help, bring that into context.
Yeah. This is Commissioner Bryant. Along those lines, I think it's really important, and this has come up even with the staff recommendations, to pay attention to the materials. When we talk about diversity of presentation, how the houses are presented, the materials in that neighborhood are really, really important, because when you're going through that neighborhood and adjacent neighborhoods, not only do the houses look different, but the materials are different and they're used differently. And so to put not just two houses that are similar in their structure together, but to use materials that may seem inappropriate for that neighborhood, like aluminum siding as opposed to brick, for example. And do they both have to be brick, depending on where, there are stucco homes, as well as wood paneled homes and brick houses mixed throughout that neighborhood. And, even the front lawns look different because the houses are situated on the property in different ways, so that, looking at the houses from the front is very different as you move from one house to the other.
Thank you very much, sir. Commissioners, anyone else want to chime in on this?
Hi, Chairman Lebo. This is Eric Holcomb.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I just wanted to try to give some ideas of how the best to sort of negotiate this item here. I think it would be best if when we start crafting a motion, we think about just tabling this motion right now with a justification that the proposal is not ready for this, and we requested that the developer go back to the commission. I don't think that we should disapprove it based on those justifications, but I think we could table that. So that was just one of the suggestions I want to put out there.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Commissioners, any other comments? I guess one that I'd like to offer is, clearly there's a lot of ill will generated from a prior project, and potentially trying to resolve some of the open issues there might create some greater comfort with the community that the developer could move forward with a new project if he made some corrections on the old project that's now occupied. Commissioners, do we want to present a motion or move to table with some clear instructions?
So if we table, what we're tabling with what instructions exactly? That if we piece all of this together, all the comments together, we are going to table this proposal with the instructions that the developer revisits this project with community input, with the ARC's input. And then that comes back to us when the community is and the developer are in agreement about what the project should be, or would it be something like that?
Hi, this is Eric again. I just want to make sure that if we approve or disapprove this item, we do it based on our guidelines, based upon the project. Is this project ready to move forward? Does it meet or does not meet the design guidelines? And I think that we could justify that. I also think that we could just table it and say that the project's not ready, and we are going, but before we will bring it up again, we want the developer to meet with the community and to resolve and sort of address the concerns of the community, the concerns of the Cedardale project not being constructed properly, and other things that way. So those are the two ways that I'm looking at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I was asking for sort of like a confirmation, because I actually think the second part was probably makes more sense.
So I would suggest we have a couple things here. We actually have three paths forward. We could, in theory, approve, we could disapprove, or we could table. If it's anything other than approval, I would suggest that we give explicit instructions on the architectural character that we have direct purview over, and some guidance over community engagement that we don't have direct purview over, but clearly are very supportive of, with the expectation that the ARC could come back and report to the commission and hopefully be more supportive of the project. I think it's important that we separate the community relations aspect of this from what we're being presented as a design element. Both are important to consider, but I also want to make sure that we are ruling only on things that we can rule on, which is the kind of design of the project. I would suggest that whether we table or disapprove, already what we expect to receive in return would be something in a brick or other, brick or stucco or something other than the siding. That's already been clear with that. I think Commissioner Penza had some very good observations that rather than completely rethinking the plans, some clever work at the elevations, theme and variation on porches, roof pitches, things like that could create dramatically different character without having to develop an entirely second set of plans.
Yeah, because a lot of those houses in the neighborhoods where there were like side porches, for example, they enclosed them. And so they're surrounded by, you see those old houses where they have windows where a porch used to be. It's like paned windows, and they turn it into sort of like a sunroom or sort of a family room. And so, those are really interesting features. And so you would have one house that looks like that, but then you go a couple of blocks and you would see a similar house that may have a porch instead of the enclosure. And I think that's what Commissioner Penza was sort of suggesting.
All right. So we have a lot of stuff put out there. Would someone care to try and make a motion and give us some clarity on this? Commissioner Bryant, looks like you were halfway there.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get back there because as I talked, I got lost. So if someone could shoot a flare, I can find my way back. Yeah, I'll see if someone else can take a stab at this, but because I think these are great suggestions or great recommendations by the staff, except for I don't necessarily agree with final plans to return to staff. I think, working with the community, revisiting this project with these recommendations, and then reproposing it really, or representing it to the commission is probably more in lines with what would satisfy both the developer and community as well as the commission.
This is Commissioner Edwards. I have one point of clarity. So as far as our purview, we have height, massing, and scale. And what about these items that we're talking about that have more to do with the context and the compatibility with the rest of the neighborhood? Are those also items?
We absolutely have control over that. We have purview over, it's called the built structure. We can't dictate community relations, although clearly we're very supportive of a more positive interaction between developer and community. But, we're not limited to height, scale, and massing. That's kind of the first pass at things. We look at materiality. We look at form and scale. We look at variation, theme and variation amongst multiple properties. All that is within our scope. I just want to be very clear is that it appears to me at least that there were two sets of concerns raised by the community, one of which is the design and the placement of the buildings. Other is the interactions with the developer. And like I said, while we have purview over the first element of that, we don't directly have purview over the second, other than I would suggest that if there were better community and developer relations, there might be more latitude given by the community on designs that are presented.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, I think that I could try and put together a motion. I would move to table the item and require that the developer rework the designs that includes changing the material, the exterior. I would like to see what the brick is going to look like, and then also some of the ideas that Commissioner Penza talked about of putting some variety in the two buildings, and return. And I would recommend that they also present that to the community. I know that we can't enforce that piece of it, but I would recommend that, and then return to the commission with new plans.
Yeah.
All right.
Hi, this is Eric again. I just want to say I think that we can have a condition that they need to go back to the community and work with the community. Our procedures are that you come to this commission with a completed application, and it looks like that. And part of that completed application is to do your work with the community. So I think that's fine. I just don't want to disapprove based on just that. And I think that we're in really solid ground with this motion here.
You mean the recommendation? We're on solid ground with the recommendation, and we could tweak.
So let's restate for now. And so I think what we have is we have a motion to table with the direction that the applicant come back after they have incorporated both the comments incorporated in the recommendations by staff to look at brick or stucco or some other material other than clapboard siding, clearly indicating the windows, the notes on the shutters, but then also incorporating comments that were made by Commissioner Penza and seconded by others about creating a variety between the two properties, which can be done through changing porches, changing, maybe window placement, roof lines. That's up to the applicant to figure out. But then also directing the applicant to have a conversation with the ARC and represent these, because part of, Eric's absolutely correct. Part of our process is we need to receive input from the ARC. So we would expect and would direct the applicant to return to the ARC to present a revised scheme, which then the ARC can then offer to us their comments.
Right.
Yeah, I have one other question because there was a comment put in by President AJ Foster talking about the Cedardale Road location. I don't know that we are able to retroactively, I don't know if there's anything that we can do related to the Cedardale properties. And I wanted to see if anybody can answer that for me at this point.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. I mean,
so was I. Yeah.
I knew there was nothing we could do, but I was wondering if there is a process by which someone might go even through a different agency to sort of get some sort of resolution. It wouldn't be us, of course, but
Hi, this is Eric Holcomb again. I think there's a couple things we could do. First of all, we can just ask the developer, will you please fix the Cedardale house to make it conform to our guidelines, number one. And number two, we have had conversations with the code enforcement folks of HCD, and I will go back and have more conversations with them to see if there's anything that we can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And should addressing Cedardale be something we put in our recommendation?
As we've tabled that, I think we certainly could ask for additional information about how Cedardale will be resolved.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a motion to table. Do we have a second? And then we'll restate.
I'd second the motion if we could just restate it again, just to be
exactly. So I have a motion from Commissioner Edwards with a second from Commissioner Bryant. The motion is to table this review and directing the applicant to come back with a design that incorporates the recommendations made by staff regarding materials for the project, with the additional direction to study variations to the building per Commissioner Penza's recommendations regarding changing a variety of elements, whether it's a porch or a roof line or something like that, to create a sense of variety between the two properties, to meet with the ARC after making these revisions prior to presenting to CHAP once again to get community input, and then also to come back and explain how they intend to resolve the currently unresolved matter of Cedardale. Does that sound like a motion we can get behind? So that's a motion to table. Commissioner Edwards, does that summarize the motion you made?
Yes. The one thing that I thought of is that I would like to see a rendering of the two side by side. That's, just to see the differences when they come back. I'd like to see what they look like next to each other.
There is the one street elevation they did previously that was actually 4 buildings in context with the 2 in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I would certainly expect that an updated package would incorporate something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So we have a motion. Commissioner Bryant, you are still willing to maintain the second on that?
Absolutely. Second.
All right. So we have a motion to table. All those in favor of the motion to table will signify by saying aye when Eric calls your name.
Commissioner Powell. We will go back to Commissioner Bryant.
Go back, yes.
Aye.
Commissioner Penza.
Aye.
Commissioner Renan.
Aye.
Commissioner French.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Chairman Liebel.
Chair votes aye, and I think we're still one shy unless Commissioner Powell just signed in.
Commissioner Powell's on. She's unmuted.
I
So
said
that's an
aye.
aye. That's great.
That's an aye for Powell.
All right. Therefore, the motion carries. This item is tabled until a future date. And with that, there being no further business before the commission, we are adjourned. Thank you all, and we will see you next month. Commissioner Bryant.